Hi students, it's Ms. Carrasco. Today is Tuesday, and today we're going to be learning about Scamper. Alright, so here is your today's challenge. I'm going to leave this up for a couple of seconds while I explain. You will have to complete the today's challenge in Schoology. So look for the red folder on the materials main menu. It's labeled today's challenge, and you will find this exact same paragraph. You will rewrite the following paragraph using correct capitalization, and then just submit it. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next portion. You typically have 8 minutes to complete this, but since you are virtual, you do it at your own pace. All right, today's agenda. What are we looking at today? So for today's challenge, you're going to be doing a capitalization activity or rewriting. For Reader's Workshop, we're going to be reading the story From Mom and Me and Mom, and then learning about Scamper. For Writer's Workshop, we are going to begin with the 8 parts of speech. We've already discussed nouns, and now we're going to go over pronouns. And then finally, your exit ticket will be answering the essential questions. Reader's Workshop. Okay, the essential question for today for Reader's Workshop is, what is Scamper, and how does it help us analyze plot at a deeper level? By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to answer this question. All right, so let's take a little bit of a review from yesterday's lesson. Yesterday, we learned about plot. We discussed that plot is the basic sequence of events in a story. You might remember the plot diagram from previous years of school, but yesterday we talked about it by watching the little clip with the Monsters Incorporated characters in it, where Mike got a new car and was trying to show Sullivan about it. We discussed the different types of elements in a plot diagram, such as exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the denouement or resolution, as I described it in the previous lesson. All right, so for today, we are going to take some different types of notes, still on your reading side of your journal. And before we discuss what Scamper is, I need you to have a background understanding of what an acronym is. An acronym is a word or name formed from the beginning of letters, or the beginning letters of other words, and then it's pronounced into one word. Acronyms help us remember things by simplifying its name. Here are some examples of acronyms, like LOL or LOL, which means laugh out loud. So if you take a look at the L, the O, and then the L in loud, when you put them together, they form this acronym. Then we have YOLO. Notice how I pronounced it with the letters. YOLO means you only live once. That's an acronym. So YOLO is an acronym for you only live once. NASA. NASA. The beginning letters of each word sounded out as NASA. NASA is an acronym for National Aeronautics Space Administration. Then we have GIF, or Graphics Interchange Format. And then we have ZIP, which is an acronym for Zone Improvement Plan. So that is what an acronym is. So today you are going to learn a very special acronym that we are going to be using throughout the entire school year. And it is called Scamper. Scamper is an acronym. It is a reading strategy used to help us remember the elements that we analyze in plot. So a lot of times when we think of plot, we just kind of think of like the beginning, middle, and end, how the story began and what the climax is, and then how the story ended. But in reality, in 7th grade, and especially in this honors class, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper than that. We're going to be looking at characterization and why the setting is the setting, and Why are the characters that they are? Why are they the way that they are? Why did they react that way? And that's what we're going to be looking at. So Scamper is actually, let me move myself out of the way here. Scamper is this acronym right here. So I put the letters running down from top to bottom, and each letter stands for something. So S stands for setting, when and where the story took place. We want to be very, very specific about setting. C, characters. We always start with the main character, and then we start looking at the secondary characters and their personalities as well. A stands for attitude of the protagonist. Remember, the protagonist is also another word for the main character of a story. We try to notice the beginning and the end, um, like the differences of a character's attitude from the beginning and then at the end. We take a look at how characters change throughout the story. M stands for motivation. Why does the protagonist do what they do? And then also sometimes we're not just looking at the protagonist, but we might also be looking at the motivation of secondary characters, because more often than not, secondary characters play an important role in a story. P stands for problem, but in 7th grade we refer to it as conflict, but we will be referring to conflict and problem interchangeably throughout the school year. We try to notice the conflict and whether it is an internal or an external conflict. And if it is an external conflict, we try to determine what type of conflict that is, and we'll learn more about that later. E stands for effect. What was different from the beginning to the end? How were the characters and situations changed after the climax? And what was the resulting event? And also within effect is characterization. So characters and effect also kind of embed within each other, in the fact that a character's actions can affect other people, so that it also falls under effect. And then finally, we have R for resolution, which is, in other words, like, the ending of the story. How did the story end? Did they solve the problem? And if they did, how did they solve it? Was it a happy ending or was it a sad ending? Or, what is the resolution? So that's Scamper. All right, so the first thing that we're going to be learning about today is setting. We're only going to focus on setting. Setting is when and where the story takes place. Remember how I said that we want to be very specific about setting. So in order to be specific, we have to think about the following things as we are reading and making these, mind notes. For example, where? Where are they? Where are the characters? Where is the story taking place? Is it in a specific town, a specific city? Is it in a different planet? Is it at a specific store, a specific school, maybe? When is it taking place? Notice the time of the day. Is it in the morning, in the evening, maybe during lunchtime? Is it during fall, winter, summer, or spring? Is it during a special event like the 4th of July, like a holiday or Christmas? We also take a look at the surroundings to help us find clues about the setting, such as, like, is there a mountain? Are there lots of mountains? Are there a lot of trees? Are there oceans, lakes? So more often than not, surroundings, the objects in our surroundings can tell us where and when something is taking place as well. Like, we can find out what the geographical location of a certain place is just by analyzing or making observations of the surroundings and objects mentioned. The time is also the when, season, also the when, weather. We also look at, the weather is very, very specific. So maybe in one scene, the characters are in a place where it's raining, and then all of a sudden it's like not raining anymore, but it's muddy. But the author has not told us what time of the day it is, but we know that that time has passed by because it has stopped raining. So all of these little things will always help us determine and figure out what the setting is. So then we go into the plot diagram that we talked about yesterday. Setting is introduced in the exposition for the most part. And typically it is because it is the most common way to start a story. So we try to identify the setting in the exposition. Sometimes, though, the setting will change throughout the story. So kind of like an adventure, you know? For example, uh, the story could begin at school, but the story can then end at home. So, but where we find the story taking place the most is going to be called the main setting and considered the setting of the story. So let's think back. On yesterday's lesson, you were instructed to read the story grounded. And I want you to think about when and where the story grounded mostly takes place. What is a constant setting of the story grounded? For today's assignment, I want you to read the excerpt from Mom and Me and Mom on page 77 of your consumable textbooks. Then in your reading journal, I want you to create a plot diagram and label it for the story. Beneath the drawing, I want you to write a short 2 to 3 sentence description of the story's setting. So much like yesterday where you drew the plot diagram for the story grounded, today I want you to create a plot diagram for the story from Mom and Me and Mom. And then I also want you to write 2 to 3 sentences underneath your drawing and give me a short description of where the story takes place. Once you do that, I want you to take a picture of it and submit it or upload your photo to the assignment on Schoology. Writer's Workshop. Let's get started on this one. Remember that you can always pause this video at any moment, okay? So today we're going to be learning about pronouns. The essential question for today is, why do we always capitalize the pronoun I, but not the other personal pronouns like me or my? Okay. Once again, you may take notes for your writing side of your journal. So yesterday we learned about nouns, correct? And then today we're going to be learning about pronouns. These are all of our 8 parts of speech, and today we're going to be focusing on pronouns. So pronouns are words that take the place of a noun, kind of like a superhero that wears a mask, but you can't really see their identity because they're hiding behind a mask. That's kind of what pronouns are. They're just words that wear a mask. Here are some examples of pronouns that we typically see in writing. There are 4 different types of pronouns. We have subjective, objective, possessive, and reflexive. So we have, for subjective, we have the pronouns I, we, you, he, she, they, it. Objective, we have me, us, you, him, her, them, and it. For possessive, we have my, mine, our, ours, his, her and hers, their and theirs, and its. For reflexive, we have myself, ourselves, yourself, himself, herself, themselves, and itself. So did you notice that the pronoun I is the only pronoun that we capitalize? Why is that? Well, in order for you to understand that, it would have to be a really, really long story. But there's this guy in the next slide that I found on the internet that I thought he explained it pretty simply. So instead of teaching you the very long story of the history of the English language, let's go ahead and watch this video on the next slide and just really try to understand why it's the only one that we capitalize.
Hey guys, it's Thursday. Time for me to answer all the questions your textbooks don't. This week's going to be a mini episode because I'm preparing something for Halloween next week. So this question I don't get often, but it was a really interesting one, and I thought it was super cool. So here it is. Why do we capitalize I? Whenever the letter I is used in writing, it is always capitalized. It's always made bigger. This rule has been around for a really long time, and honestly, most people don't know why. But I do. Around the time of Old or Middle English, the word for me was actually ich or ich, but over time those extra letters got dropped and I was left by itself. So scholars decided that the idea of I, of myself, was too big, too important of an idea for this small, kind of not impressive letter. So they decided to always make it capitalized. I know it sounds silly, but small things like this actually have a major impact on how English evolved over time. So I hope you enjoyed this small look into the history of English and why some things are the way they are. Subscribe if you like this video and keep watching every week for a new one. See you next week.
All right, so that is why we capitalize the letter I. So basically, a long time ago, these scholars wanted to make sure that the idea of yourself was just emphasized enough because they wanted it to be important. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at pronouns and antecedents. They go together. An antecedent is a noun that the pronoun replaces. Antecedents help us not confuse who or what we are talking about, especially in a long paragraph. You could be talking about like 3 different people, and if they're all male characters, we can't just keep saying he, because which character are you talking about? So it can be a little confusing. So that's why we have antecedents.
Pronouns and antecedents. At Grammar Songs by Melissa. This video builds upon the concepts and skills introduced in subject pronouns and antecedents. You have learned that pronouns are words that replace nouns or proper nouns when we read, speak, or write. The prefix pro means for, so pronouns stand in for nouns. You have also learned that an antecedent is a fancy name for the noun or proper noun being replaced by the pronoun when you speak or write. Using a noun, I could write, the girl went to the store. Using a proper noun, I could write, Mary went to the store. Using a pronoun, I could write, she went to the store. She is the pronoun that is referring to the noun girl or to the proper noun Mary. She is the pronoun, and the girl and Mary are the antecedents. But not all pronouns are found at the beginnings of sentences. There are many different types of pronouns in the English language. They all refer to nouns or proper nouns or even other pronouns in some way. Oh no! Yikes! How are we ever going to learn all of this? Relax. We aren't going to identify all of these types of pronouns today. We are going to focus on the relationship between pronouns and antecedents. When we speak and when we write, it's important to communicate clearly so whoever is listening to us or reading our thoughts can understand the message we are trying to convey. Understanding the relationship between pronouns and antecedents makes your speech and writing less choppy and repetitive, so it creates more fluid communication. So let's get started. Okay. Sasha read her new book. This sentence has a pronoun in it. Her is a singular feminine possessive pronoun that we use every day. Let's look at why we use it and how using it can make you a better writer. Without the pronoun her, in order to convey the same message, we would have to write, Sasha read Sasha's new book. That sounds silly. Exactly. Repeating the name Sasha within the same sentence sounds choppy and redundant. That is why using pronouns is helpful, but it is important to choose the correct pronoun for the job. We wouldn't want to say, Sasha read his new book, or Sasha read their new book. Since Sasha is female and there is only one, we need to choose a pronoun that agrees in gender and number. Her is a singular feminine pronoun. It refers back to Sasha. Sasha is the antecedent. That makes sense. Let's practice again. Okay, let's practice again. The puppy couldn't remember where he put his bone. This sentence actually has two pronouns in it. He is a single masculine personal pronoun, and his is a singular masculine possessive pronoun. But let's look at why we need these pronouns and how they affect our speaking and writing. Without the pronouns he and his, in order to convey the same message, we would have to write, the puppy couldn't remember where the puppy put the puppy's bone. Oh my goodness, how weird. Exactly. Writing the puppy 3 times in one sentence sounds silly. That is why using pronouns is so helpful. But it is important to choose the correct pronouns for the job. We wouldn't want to say, the puppy couldn't remember where she put her bone, since Ruff is a boy dog, or the puppy couldn't remember where they put their bone, since there is just one puppy. Since the puppy is male and there is only one, we need to choose pronouns that agree in gender and number. He and his are singular masculine pronouns. They both refer back to the puppy. So, the puppy is the antecedent. Awesome! This makes sense. So remember, pronouns are words that replace nouns or proper nouns when we speak or write. Antecedents are the original nouns or proper nouns the pronouns are referring to. And most importantly, the relationship between pronouns and antecedents makes your writing less choppy and your message more clear. Hooray! You did a great job learning about pronouns and antecedents. Thank you for joining me at Grammar Songs by Melissa.
All right, so for today, I want you to kind of look at these sentences. In the classroom, you should have, or you would have, helped your teacher disguise all of the nouns in the sentences with pronouns. So I want you to take a look at these for just a minute. I want you to pause the video. Give yourself some time to think about how to disguise the nouns in the sentences with pronouns. For number 1, Mr. Barrett told the students that there would be a quiz. Number 2, the quiz was very hard for the students. Number 3, purple grapes taste better than the green grapes. And number 4, Stacy was super excited about the math score. So by replacing the nouns with a pronoun, we would have the following new sentences. For example, number 1, he told them that there would be a quiz. He is replacing Mr. Barrett, and them is replacing the students. Mr. Barrett and the students are the antecedents for he and them. Number 2, the quiz was very difficult for the students. It was very difficult for them. So the antecedents, the pronouns are it and them, which are replacing the nouns the quiz and the students. The quiz is the antecedent for the pronoun it. The students is the antecedent for the pronoun them. Number 3, purple grapes taste better than the green grapes. These taste better than those. The nouns are purple grapes and green grapes. Purple grapes is an antecedent for the pronoun these, and green grapes is an antecedent for the pronoun those. Number 4, Stacy was super excited about the math score. She was super excited about it. The pronouns are she and it. Stacy is the antecedent for the pronoun she, and the math score is the antecedent for it. So let's review yesterday's lesson on capitalizing with mints. So yesterday you learned about an acronym, which was mints. M stands for months, I stands for the letter I, which we learned about today. N stands for names, T for titles, and S for the beginning of sentences or the start of sentences. So for today's Writer's Workshop assignment, I want you to complete the capitalization worksheets to practice your capitalization skills. If you finish early, work on the pronouns worksheet. So if you didn't finish yesterday's assignment, go ahead and do that. Today you will have a different capitalization worksheet to reinforce your skills from yesterday, and you will also have a pronoun worksheet in your Schoology assignment to help you with today's lesson. For your exit ticket, go ahead and answer that in Schoology. Answer the Reader's Workshop and Writer's Workshop questions on one page in your journal. I want you to take a picture of that and you can submit it to the exit ticket assignment. The Reader's essential question once again was, what is Scamper and how does it help us analyze plot at a deeper level? The Writer's essential question is, why do we capitalize the pronoun I, but not the other personal pronouns like me or my? If you decide to just post a comment on the exit ticket, you can do that as well. That way you don't have to take a picture. This will be a discussion question, so that means that you can just post your question as a comment. Sorry, your answer as a comment. And that's all for today. I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.